So, I started writing the lecture notes or the slides for this week. So I'll just set my audio. There we go. Yeah, I started writing these, and then I realized it was the most fruitless exercise because basically, so all I'm going to take you through is what I call the tech stack for journalism startup. What I think you should use now. There's loads of stuff in there. There's lots of different tools that you can use, but it's basically what technology tools should you use to run your venture. Some of them are paid, lots of them are free. So I've tried where I can have a free option, so you guys can use a free option if you need to do stuff. Basically, if you try and be as lean as possible, lean as in like cheap as possible, try and just get away with using free stuff for as long as you can. Most of the time you can actually do that, but there'll be a point where you have to start paying for some things in your tech stack, so to speak. So I'll go through these things, and then if you've got specific stuff in your idea that you need to then figure out how to run that part, then we can talk about that maybe towards the end, or you can just fire off questions, probably easier. So there's a lot for me to go through. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get through all of it or whether it'll actually even be productive for me to do so. It might be better if we get to a point where you guys can just start asking about specific stuff you want to get done. What should you use for that? What tools? So tech tools. Cool. So this is like this is what we'll cover. I'll provide a master list of everything that I'll go through. So I won't really spend much time on this actual presentation, or try not to. I'll try and just go and show you all the different tools and what they all look like. The way that I sort of look at it, the master stack is sort of broken up into these areas of activity, and in terms of how they relate to what your business model canvas is actually the back end stuff. All of these tools and things that you're using are the back end components of your business model canvas. So some of them might be key partners that you have. If you're a journalism startup, some of them, it's basically what your key resources, typically your people, use to do your key activities, which is mostly publishing if you're a publishing venture. Some of them are actually distribution channels, so how you actually take your product or your content to your audience or to your customer segments. And all of them have an impact on your cost structure and also potentially your revenue streams, but more likely the cost structure side. And they're broken up into creation, so creating content or production of content and what you are selling. How you publish that content, primarily online, so this is really focused on digital. If you do have other areas, it's not really my area of expertise, but we can do some research on those areas. And then there's distribution, so which is the channel component, how you actually get your content out. Monetization tools and platforms and products, how you make money, and the way that you facilitate that through technology, and then management and admin. So everything that wraps up around business systems and all that sort of boring stuff, which is super important. It's sort of the way that I'm splitting it up today. Before I do that, I might actually talk you guys through the raw bones of digital, just so you've got so that you know about it. So, how many of you guys have ever done any coding? Has it been covered in the course yet? None at all? Okay, cool. So, in the digital space, have you guys heard of HTML? Yeah? Yeah. It's been around for like 25 years. It's like the language of the internet. So, the way that content is represented online, and I'll show you this example because it sort of works well, you can actually see it happening, is if you go from the top to the bottom, the top end, this is sort of like front end languages. What I mean by front end is they make pictures like that appear in web browsers. And then the back-end languages are the ones that actually handle the data. So they get content from a database, or they get content from around the place and present it to you as a user. If you ever want to get into coding, and I think it's a really valuable skill for any journalist, it's important that you start from sort of the top down. So you'd start with HTML and CSS. move on to JavaScript, and then go into backend languages. So HTML is basically the content. So that title is formatted and coded in HTML. Sorry, it's coded in HTML. CSS, or cascading style sheets, basically style, basically says, all right, that headline, Energy Giant acts as, £4 billion for UK turbine project. The CSS will say that his font size is X. His font size is like 50. It'll say the font is Tahoma or whatever it is. It'll say it's purple or bright pink or black or grey or whatever. You can also do animations and some interesting stuff, but it's sort of like it's the structure of the page and the styling that you see. And then JavaScript is basically making the page basically do more interesting things like animation, like more advanced animation, presenting specific data to certain users when they come in. So for example, a simple piece of JavaScript is, say you land on an article and there's an image gallery and the gallery is sliding on an interval. That's all powered by JavaScript. So that's a JavaScript slider. So that's the size of the image is CSS, but the actual image is coded in HTML itself. So the HTML says, get this image and put it here. The CSS will say, make it this size, and then the JavaScript will make it say, all right, display it for 4 seconds and then display the next one. Then there's a whole bunch of backend languages that manage data. If you're interested in those, there's a range of different things that you can pursue. If you are interested in that, hit me up on Slack, and then I can give you sort of a guide as to how you should go about learning those different things, because most of this is actually freely available. You don't have to pay. You can learn most of that for free online. YouTube channels, the whole works. There's lots and lots out there. It's just depending on what you want to do and what you want to learn. There's a lot of different ways you could go about it. I've already got it open here. So here we go. Someone has kindly coded this, what looks like the actual Guardian newspaper, rather than the actual website. So you can see the difference. And I might just start deleting stuff so you can see. Yeah, so I've already deleted that. So I might just refresh this. So this is a headline here, better than hard cash. So I can say, my awesome headline. And that's the actual content in HTML. And then a rule in here in the CSS is saying, all right, make it yellow or orange. I might actually see if this works. I don't know if I can delete all of that. Yeah, there we go. So that's just content on the page. Images, a whole bunch of random stuff. Looking terrible, looks like it's straight out of 1995. And the CSS basically puts all the content in its place. Let's see if I can move that up a bit. See it a bit. I won't spend too much time on this because you could spend hours and hours and hours. There's a really good free tutorial on Lynda about HTML if you want to check that out. If you've heard of Lynda, it's like a free online learning thing owned by, I think it's owned by LinkedIn. Cool. So that's that. Now I might just barrel on. I've actually got my notes here, so I'll refer to them on my phone. Make it a bit easier. So content. What kind of tools do you guys use when you're creating stories? So actually writing stories. Anything in particular? Nothing? Use Word?
I usually use Google Docs, actually.
Cool. So that's the first one I was going to mention. Totally free. You should definitely use it. It's got ripping collaboration tools in there. So you can edit, do markups. This is a bunch of stuff from my business. So search functionality, here's a document started by someone else, shared with me. in here so you can work on stories together. That's a really great free content collaboration tool. Check it out. All right, anything else? What about coming up with story ideas? Do you guys use anything specific? So one thing I really find, or I think is quite useful, is this thing called the Google Keyword Planner. And it's part of 2003. I apologize about this last week, but for both of you, a lot of these aren't available in China. What it actually does is it's a more advanced version of the Google Trends interface. So Google Trends basically gives you sort of top level insight into what people are searching for, which basically is what's going on. So this is, well, they've got specific stuff on the Olympics there at the moment, but you've got sort of search rankings on, high level topics across a range of different things. It's interesting and it looks nice, but it's not that useful as when you're trying to come up with story ideas, particularly if you're not, if you're trying to sell something or if you're trying to create content across a specific vein, you don't really know how popular certain words are and certain topics are. So you can use this to find out. So for example, if your idea, or if it's still the idea you're going for, this science-based one, so what's an area, a topic that you would potentially be writing about in the science world?
Climate change, I guess.
So, that's my phrase, landing page, so I'll just put in mine. At the moment, say I'm in the media, news media. Then you can target different things, different locations. But basically you can go and get ideas for keywords. And this basically gives you, and this is totally free, this gives you an understanding of monthly searches around a specific topic, how competitive it is, so how much people are bidding on that keyword, so how popular it is in commercial terms as well. And then related keywords by relevance and average searches. So you can see, well, what kind of competition is going on around specific keywords and specific phrases. So the way people search, if you were to say, have a long tail of content that you need to produce for your website, you could then look at this and say, all right, well, an article for you to create would be the top 100 statistics on global warming in 2016. And that is, there's relatively low search volume, but it also has pretty low competition. So it's not highly competed against in terms of other commercial buying on those keywords, but then also potentially on the way people are targeting it. The highest volume is obviously climate change. So if you had like a lead story in your climate change section, then obviously having that in the headline is really important.
What's the bid thing? Is that to do with ads or?
Yeah, so this is actually a keyword planner for Google's search engine marketing engine.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why it's free, because they give it away so people come in and use it, and then you can buy advertising through it against certain keywords. But what's really good is it gives you, basically gives you ideas for content creation. What's this? Yeah. Particularly if you're into content marketing. So it's good for SEO. If you're an SEO journalist, you would use something like this. But it's also really good for content marketing, because then you can see what kind of content you need to create to drag people to your site to discover, what it is that you sell, or what your product or service is. So for example, on your idea, which was something like study in Australia. It's a bit strange. we go. So your related search terms, those are pretty high. So some content that you would need to create on your website would be a rank of the top 10 universities and why they're great for, why they're great to study in for overseas students, or what's good about them. You would also do this by specific study area, so areas that you think people are interested in studying, and you could get keywords for all of those different areas as well. This example is pretty raw. Obviously, you can go pretty deep and pretty detailed on it, but you get the idea. There's a lot of resources out there that you can investigate on, search engine marketing, SEO, content optimization, all of that sort of stuff. If you're interested, I can give you some book recommendations as well in that space. Again, just hit me up on Slack for it. Cool. Any questions on that before I barrel on? So that's the Google Keyword Planner. There's another really cool tool called Spike by a company called Newswhip, and this is they call it content intelligence. And basically what it is it scrubs all of the data coming through from basically it seems like the whole internet. I think it's amazing. To find content that's trending across different categories and across different social networks, and across different time periods. So you can see within the last 3 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, what content is taking off and going viral. So if you're really, so for example, on your idea, so if you could use some of that insight around what people are searching for or what kind of content is taking off around the anime, sort of the manga space. Sorry if that's not the wrong terminology, but you get the idea. Like specific around a content area, because you can filter it down by topics and also by geography. So you can go by Japan, for example. You could look at what's happening in Japan and then try and take some of that content and get it into your readers in other parts of the world before they discover it, potentially. It's also really good for trending content within individual social networks. So Twitter, obviously lots of content breaking news in Twitter is huge, and this will give you an insight as to what's coming through Twitter. So it's a real sort of a data tool. Lots of media companies use it, lots of newsrooms use it. I think it's fantastic. It is actually a paid tool, but you can do a trial and then you can keep doing a bunch of trials for a while just to try it out. But it is, if you find that it is useful and you're producing lots of content, particularly if you're a content startup, this would be a good investment. If you're in that space, if it's something where you're chasing the churn of news constantly, then this would be really useful. Cool. A more basic version of that, which is actually free, which I have a hold of in my Google Drive, is this thing called the keyword, or the content planner sheet. It's available online. You can search for it. Content strategy helper. There it is, version 3. This is basically a free version of this Newswhip product that someone's put together that just goes into a range of different sort of trending content areas and tries to get relevant ranked content from all of those different sources around keywords. So if we go with the climate change keyword again, I can share this with all of you, or you could just search for it online, Content Strategy Helper, Built Visible. I think this is those guys are a consultancy, I think, so it's something they did for. It will give you, say, from Google News rankings, what's coming through, Google News US, Hacker News, the different URLs, what's coming through on, conversations through Reddit, if you guys heard of Reddit, Dig, which is a social bookmarking site. Something's wrong with YouTube. Never mind, some of these things work, sometimes they don't, hence why it's free. And a range of different other areas if there are if there's relevant content coming through those different things. And you can see that's cool. Yeah, so a social ranking sort of scrubbed from a product called Follower Wonk, but you don't have to pay for it in here. I think there's elements of it that are free anyway, so you can see who's, relevant influencers in the space around that topic. And then just generally what's trending, which is sort of almost like the NewsWhip product. Again, when you go with a free tool, particularly one like this that someone's just whacked together, you're gonna kind of got to take what you're given, really. But it is useful in a similar way to NewsWhip. Do any of you guys produce, or are you interested in data journalism at all?
Yeah.
Yeah? Have you done any of it, or?
Yeah, pretty basic stuff. Look pretty crappy too. So if there's a way to actually make it look good, then
So what tools did you use?
There's a few sort of. It wasn't very. They were infographics and stuff like that. So there were a few online places where you could do stuff like that, and yeah, Excel obviously.
Do you remember what they were called?
No.
So this is probably the best known one, Tableau Public. It's actually an enterprise level business intelligence platform, but they've got this free version called Tableau Public. You can download it. When you publish something, you have to publish it online. Craig Butt, the data journalist from The Age, uses this a fair bit, along with a whole bunch of other data journalists out there in the world, and academics, lots of people. I used to use it when I was working in marketing, actually, but then I also used it a bit when I did a little bit of data viz stuff. It's very sort of WYSIWYG, drag and drop. It's pretty easy to use. But there's a pretty, once you get into it, there's a lot you can do, so it gets pretty intense pretty quickly. The fact that it's free and it's enterprise grade is pretty amazing. And some of the visualizations that you can get out of it are pretty incredible. And you can just embed them into articles and people can interact with them. They've got this feature called stories, where you can pull out, a key element of a data visualization, and then write relevant contextual commentary on it. So it's pretty good for this sort of stuff. But so you can see all of the dashboards that you can make are all interactive. And there's lots and lots of resources, education resources on this. So a really good, if you are into data journalism, there's have you heard of 538?
No.
So this is it's only stats. This guy called Nate Silver. It's just a stats website, a stats news site, so data visualization. Yeah, it must be ESPN bought them. And there's lots of sport in there, obviously, because sport plays really well into that space. But they use this a lot, and their own little front end development kind of platforms. That's a good place for inspiration if you're looking for ways you can actually use something like Tableau to build data viz content. Data visualizations usually have long engagement times, which is nice, particularly if you do it like this, because people kind of like to play with it and they can click around. So it usually means that they're on the site for longer, which means that your engagement rates go up, which is really good for advertising. So data visualizations and video are both good for that. There's another couple of other ones out there, one called Vengage, which is sort of just basic infographics. And you can just embed them in your articles. So again, most of the time these products are for business, but journalists can use them as well. And then there's another one called Visually, which is sort of part content, part marketing as well. So if you need to create visual content for social media, all that sort of stuff, you can get it out of here. So those are two in that space, which are quite nice. Now, if you do need to just create consumer level images and sort of headlines and those sorts of things, this startup is really cool to use. So Canva. It's sort of like design made easy. And all it is, so if you need to put out, like, if you need an image for a piece of content that's going to social media and you need to have the headline and, you know, some other interesting stuff, you can just come to Canva and just whack in an image and put in a title and you can get it out really fast. So it's really good for really quick, kind of dirty design work that you might need to do when you're running a business. Particularly stuff that goes into social or, you know, little ads or anything you might need. So I might try and... I won't log in. I'll let you guys log into this if you find it interesting. But there's lots of sort of design inspiration you can check out. So something like that, you know, background image, Facebook cover. You know, your business needs a Facebook page. You don't want to be screwing around with like Photoshop for such a low-end design requirement. So you can just come here, grab it for free, and chuck it in. You know, it's a really good example of how you use it. You know, lots of covers, blog infographics, all this sort of stuff, depending on what your business is. Regardless of what it is, you're gonna need design resources. At the start, you're probably not going to want to pay for it. Once you do get to a point where you might want to get a bit more serious, if you want to develop your own skills in that area, there's a good app called Sketch. Mac only at the moment, but it's a lot cheaper than Photoshop. The learning curve is basically, if you can use PowerPoint, you can use Sketch, but you can design things that are, you know, high-end enough for you to give to a developer potentially if you want to get a site built. So I'd recommend checking that out. In terms of content, you can actually use it to create, say if you want to create like an ebook or something, you know, a piece of really rich content, you can also use this. Sort of also functions in a little bit similar way to InDesign, like that. Now, two other areas, or two sort of suppliers, if you will. So if you're a content startup that you would definitely need, if you're trying to launch a content startup at scale, you need images and you need Newswire content. So I've mentioned these guys before because I do work with them a bit. So Australian Associated Press. These guys provide Newswire content, so hard Newswire content around a range of different content areas, and also images. So and this is Australia focused, so there are global versions of this all over the world. You know, there's a whole bunch of them through Asia. There's a whole bunch of them through Europe. They're called the press associations. This is the Australian one. They offer subscriptions. So once you get to an enterprise level, as a content startup, you need something like this if you're really playing in the content game. Not so much if you are commercial focused, because they don't do much content marketing, but I think they're starting to do more and more of it. And then another one is obviously Getty Images. These guys, they're like the largest provider of images, I think it's in the world, both creative images and also editorial images and video as well. So we used these guys when we launched Fans Unite, and they were very good. They get pretty expensive once you start sort of getting up there, but pretty much every news organization has a subscription to Getty Images and also their Newswire of choice. Pretty much. Not like that would vary depending on where they are, but you'd be surprised, particularly in Australia with the big publishers, if they don't. They also have these like sort of royalty-free images, that sort of stuff. But I find actually a better place to get royalty-free images is a little sort of side project called Unsplash. If you're looking for creative images that sort of almost like stock photography, then I use this all of the time. Like, you know, images for content you might produce. It's all royalty free. You can use it anywhere. I've used it for the lecture slides, as you can see, so I'll put that into the lecture slide. I use this all the time. There's a whole bunch of these out there. There's loads of them. I like this one because it's sort of a little bit more curated and it's not loads of stuff. It's a smaller amount. But if you do need just random images, you can just go and get these ones, use them royalty free. You can do whatever you want, which is pretty good. Cool. So that's content. Now, I'm going to move on to publishing. So what publishing platforms are you guys familiar with? What ones do you know about?
WordPress.
WordPress? You all say with a sad face. Any others?
Lofter, I mentioned. Not three.
She mentioned last week.
Yeah, this is that blogging platform from.
Yeah.
What was it called again?
Lofter.
Lofter. Yeah.
Lofter.com. Yeah. It's like a. This is like a Chinese blogging network, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Any others?
Tumblr, I guess.
Tumblr? Yeah.
Squarespace.
Squarespace?
Blogger.
Blogger? Anything else? Cool. So my startup is actually it's not almost a competitor, but it's sort of like an alternate version to WordPress. But it isn't live yet, and you also have to pay for it. So I'm not going to show it to you guys today. I might show it to you guys when we talk about the go-to-market stuff. WordPress is a really boring option, I know. The reason why you should use it is because there's just this amazing ecosystem of apps and plugins you can use, and it's free. That's the reason why. So for you guys, like there are multi-million-dollar enterprise-grade publishing companies on WordPress. You can't really argue with that, particularly when you're starting out with no money or very little money, and you've got the option between paying for a publishing platform and not paying for a publishing platform. There are things that are really bad about it. It's not very secure, for example. Like your site can be hacked pretty easily if you're on WordPress. So once you get serious, you kind of have to go on to something else, or you have to put in place some systems to stop that or ameliorate that. But at the start, it's fine. The difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org, do you guys know what that is? You used those two things before?
Well, one's the paid one, right?
Yeah, so one's paid and one's paid and one's free. So WordPress.com is paid, and it's very rigid. There's no flexibility in terms of what you can actually do with it. WordPress.org is free in that they give you the code base, but then you have to manage it all. So they just give you the code, and then you can just deploy it wherever you want. That actually kind of sounds pretty complicated. So if you do want to use WordPress.org, I recommend going through a domain provider. I always use Namecheap. Something like this, where you basically just buy a domain, tomsawesomenewstartup.com, and then also attach some shared hosting to it. So you guys, have you done this before? Have you been through this process before? It's actually really basic and really easy. These guys provide support for whatever you need. So pick your name, as they say. Host your site might just cost you $10 for the whole year, which is pretty cheap. You know, don't have 2 beers on the weekend and then you've got your whole business website for a year. And then what you can do is in there they have an app marketplace, and you can say, all right, install WordPress, and that's where you get WordPress.org onto your site, onto your domain, and then you can start customizing it. So that's sort of the process, the really clunky process. Go onto YouTube and just search for how do I install WordPress.org or those sorts of things, and there'll be tutorials you can follow. That's pretty basic, but you can do that. Alternatively, if you only want to go with sort of a more simple kind of use of WordPress, you can go with WordPress.org.com. If you don't mind it being a bit more rigid, then you can just go on here, pay a bit more money, and it'll do it all for you. So all of that hosting and all that sort of stuff will be done for you. Where are the plans? Here we go. So they've got an onboarding process, and you can just do it through there. You still get access to a range of different plugins in there, but it's not as flexible. On the flip side, it's more reliable, and if you run into problems, they'll actually help you out. But in reality, doing this way with WordPress.com is no different to going with Squarespace or one of those other ones. Like, it's still pretty rigid, still in their kind of structure. If you want the power, and the whole reason why WordPress is attractive is because it's free, then you have to go with the WordPress.org option. If you're looking for WordPress themes, I really like using ThemeForest. say if I want my site to look exactly like the New York Times, and this is a template in there. So this is a template ecosystem. There are free ones in there. There's lots of paid ones as well. And just go WordPress and then say, all right, I want to start a not-for-profit. There's a dedicated church WordPress theme that I can use and just kickstart. And all of the stuff will be, built in. It'll be very easy to use and get started with it. So this one, say, I can check it out. I should be able to go and have a look at it. Live preview. There's a whole bunch of themes in there. WordPress. There's a bunch of other themes elsewhere, but I like using this just because it's a bit easier. And also, I think it's an Australian company. Wait for that to load. While we wait for that, I'll just spin up my site and show you. So you guys have all used WordPress by the sound of it? Yeah? Yeah? Cool. The only thing I'll show you then, given that you guys are familiar with it, is this. If you're going to use it, use this Yoast SEO plugin. Have you guys used that? It's free and it'll just generally improve the performance of your site, and it will appraise every page that you have and give you a readability and sort of performance index based on SEO. It's another one of the reasons why I haven't found an equivalent high-performing SEO kind of package in comparison to this anywhere else. So, for example, if I go to a page, my pages, gives me SEO and readability scores across all these things. So, failing across the board for some of those. My front page, check it out. I should be able to see my front page, lots of content, a bunch of other stuff. And then you can quickly edit all the SEO performance in and have the focus keyword for that page. So going back to the keyword planner I was talking about before, if you're saying, right, well, this page is my home page, and the target market I'm targeting is people creating, publishing or content websites. So the keyword we've chosen to focus on is website platform for this whole page. And then it gives you performance analysis based on what the content in your page, based on how it's performing. So if you're writing an article in here, you install that and you say, well, my focus keyword for this piece of content is, say if it was an article about Australia's, underwhelming performance at the Rio Olympics. And then my focus keyword or keywords might be Australia, Rio. And then it'll tell me what the keyword density is in the whole page, in the whole article. It'll tell me how often it appears. It'll tell me whether that's good or bad. It'll give me readability scores. It gives you a bunch of other stuff that helps you improve the performance of your content. So that's relevant for publishers as well as content marketers or anyone running a business. Just load it up there. Yeah, there we go. So this is like the $59. This is sort of also goes back to that MVP idea. Like your website doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to function. So you come in here. What I always do with like MVP websites is I'll just come in and get one of these. Change up a couple of the icons, change the copy. Go to Unsplash, get some relevant images, and then bang, the site is up. And you can do that in a day. You don't have to pay a developer, and you don't have to pay a designer, and you can get something that's good enough up and going to get some data back, as opposed to spending 10 grand on a website and finding out that nobody wanted the thing that you were thinking about launching anyway. Little counters. Again, an example of JavaScript. Cool. So that's WordPress. Did you have any questions about WordPress specifically, given that you guys have all used it before? Are any of you thinking of using it for your... Yeah? Any questions?
No, seems pretty straightforward.
So a blogging, like a straight blogging platform. So WordPress started as a blogging platform, and then it became this like whole web CMS that runs the whole internet now, it seems. One of the lead developers from that community basically said, I just want to go back to being a content-focused blogging platform, and so he created this platform called Ghost. This happened last week, where the internet just starts just grinding to a halt. So he was like one of the best developers from the open source community of WordPress, and then he created this, which is quite a good blogging platform, but it's only about blogging and just creating content. So check this out. It's free as well, but then there's like really basic templates, and then you can pay for a template, and the template costs $10 or something like that. So it's pretty clean, pretty simple to use. Particularly the writing interface, which is nice because it has like it has a basic writing interface, and then it gives you the preview, and also you can preview on device, which is quite nice. And then it's going to manage your authors, collaborate as a team, all of that sort of stuff, which is quite good. So that's Ghost. If you're into live blogging, there's a platform called Scribble Live. Call themselves a content marketing platform. I don't know if that's true. This is a paid tool, so it's not something that you're just going to dive into. But if you're covering, live events, it's really good. If you do need to do any live blogging, this and a product called Storyful are really good for pulling in social content from a range of different places. I know Storyful. Oh god, I always forget the name of it. Oh, it'll come to me.
Storify.
Oh, that's in Storify. So you've heard of that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you like it? Did you use it much?
Probably
Storify.
wasn't so helpful for the thing I was doing. I just wanted to sort of use it for the sake of it, but I could see it being really good.
Yeah. So when the ABC do live blogs, it's part of Livefire now. Okay. So Livefire is a big social aggregation kind of platform. That's actually enterprise. It's now owned by Adobe, I believe. But when the ABC do say there's a really big live breaking story, they'll either use Scribble Live or Storify or both to cover it. So say there's a terrorist siege in Sydney, they spun up one of these. That's what they always do. So they spin up an article, say live blog is live, and then they're just constantly updating that with content as it comes through from social, verified from social, or journos in the field or whatever it is. So if you do cover live events or want to have that be a focus of what you do, then these are the two tools that you should look at. All right. Now, when you're publishing and you want to use video, there's sort of an ecosystem of video providers that you obviously need to check out. YouTube, which you all know about. You can both create content and distribute content. So you can create content and host it here and then distribute it to your site. You could use this also as a distribution platform. You guys know about this, so I won't go into it. And it's free. The only problem is you can't serve ads in there that are your own, and you can only participate in their revenue share arrangement if you get big enough. And even then, you're not going to make much money. So monetizing video is a big problem. There's another platform called Vimeo. So that's sort of at the back end where it's totally free. It's huge, but it's better as a distribution platform. Something like Vimeo is a bit better because they don't serve ads into it. It's a bit more high quality, but it's more of a subscription. But you can, if you subscribe, you can customize your video player, but you still can't monetize your inventory. You can't, like if you create content on your news website and you use Vimeo, you can't monetize that video content with ads. So again, it's only this. You would use this if you really wanted to get away from those ads that YouTube put in, but it's not as convenient. So those are the sort of free options. There's another one called JW Player, which has a all of these, you basically use them and then you embed them on your site using the WordPress plugins available. This one has a range of different sort of levels. So it can go from free to basically super cheap, all the way up to totally enterprise, where you can monetize it with ad networks and things like that. It's not as high quality. It's not like super enterprise for publishers, but it's pretty good. So it does have a free version. And then once you get into that lower level version, it's sort of like, that's basically covering off what YouTube and Vimeo do. Once you get into this area, you can then start making money from the advertising component of it. But they're not as well known for this area as much. So that's that. Once you get to actual enterprise level, the two companies that sort of wrapped up the whole publisher video market are Ooyala and another one called Brightcove. So you're not going to be, unless you're a multi-million-dollar company, you're not really going to be considering Ooyala. But they run like live online streaming for Tennis Australia, for example. Like it's enterprise grade. They run subscription TV channels through their platform. Like it's hardcore. But these guys have all of the monetization options that you would ever want to grow into, from monetizing video, stitching ads together, running an ad server, all of that sort of stuff. Brightcove is a little less enterprise, so you can actually get into using them in a bit of an easier way, and they do have sort of a business and also publisher focus. News Corp use Brightcove, for example. So all of the custom video players that you see on web publisher sites that then have like a 30-minute pre-roll ad and then the actual piece of like news package or something, they use these two players, either Brightcove or Ooyala, or they use their own custom ones, but using custom in a tech stack like that is just not a good idea because it is too expensive. It's good to know about those. You guys won't have to use them anytime soon. If you're managing a network of contributors or writers, there is a platform called Kamiak. Unless it does it in platform, like some WordPress plugins do. These guys, I think, have a WordPress plugin as well. But this is basically organizing a newsroom in the cloud kind of tool. So if you've got, say you've basically gone through the conversation and got, say, 1,000 of the top contributors, because you can see who they are in the conversation, and said, hey, I'm starting a new science content startup. Do you want to contribute for me? You could use a tool like this to organize all of those writers. So when they publish, there's a workflow that comes to you or someone who's also part of the community of editors. You can then push it back to them for changes. You can push it up the chain. Like so, there's lots of communication tools. You can distribute it to multiple places. It's a pretty interesting tool, and there's a range of other ones of these. So every time I show you one of these, there's probably about 20 others out in the world. But these are the ones that I have used, think are pretty good. Cool. So that's publishing. Now, distribution. That's quite cute, isn't it? I actually tried reading this, and I thought some of the translations were pretty good. I'm like trying to figure out what it does, but it looks pretty nice. Kind of interesting. All right, distribution. So this is basically, distribution is when you get your content out to, how you get your content out to the different audiences that you have out there in the world, primarily through social. One of those ways is distributing into social networks. So this product, Buffer, is quite a valuable way to automatically schedule content to be distributed out to social networks, so lots of different places. Have you guys heard of this or used it? They also have Instagram, which is pretty cool. So this is what I use to distribute content out to my Twitter accounts. basically, you can schedule a post, you can connect a range of different social accounts, and you can schedule posts to go out to all these different places. It's very convenient, obviously, because it saves you time, because you'll be pushing content out to your social networks all of the time. So you can queue things up like, hey, this is an awesome post. Should really learn to type. Add content to it, or you can pull it in from other places, and then you can schedule that into a defined schedule that you control. So if I add that to the queue, my queue, that's a post is in my queue, and I can move it around. Say I've got another one, hello world, and I can say, all right, that's going to my LinkedIn account, that's also going to my Twitter account, it's going to my Google Plus account, and I can keep connecting more and more and more. And check out my queue. Hey, that's going out at that time. And this time I can drag them around. There's also a schedule. I'm going to say I'm going to post twice a day, Saturday, Sunday. If you're working across time zones, you can actually say, well, actually, for this profile, I'm going to target a specific time zone, which is really helpful if you're trying to market your services to the US. You're doing all of your work from Australia or China. Then you can then target, hey, so I'm going to target maybe not Chicago because that's a long time. Might target New York. And that way this schedule, and you can add a posting time, keep adding posting times, 5 times a day, but scheduled to the time when the US kind of market will be awake. And then you can change that, and then you can have a new posting schedule as you go up the different plans for different social networks. So it's basically automating and removing the work out of, removing a lot of the work out of increasing, like engaging with or developing your social audiences as a mechanism for distributing your content. So that could be just a post, or it could be a post you're going out, it could be a video, it could be an article that you've created, whatever. So that's Buffer going into your host of sort of key social networks. Another key distribution channel is email. So email is incredibly underrated for publishers, specifically. So if you are thinking of either creating a content startup or anyone who works with content, which is pretty much every business that's online, you need to have a decent email distribution strategy. How do you distribute content out to your basically people who've signed up for updates from your website, an email list you might have, and you can use MailChimp to do that. There's actually the free pricing tier in MailChimp is sufficient for you to basically build a pretty substantial business just on the free tier. What it actually is you can create sort of email templates and then sync your RSS feed from your WordPress blog or whatever it is to come and populate that template. You can then have, say, specific marketing messages and manage all of your marketing campaigns out of here as well. So, promotional campaign, say for yourself, if you need to fill up a specific study tour and there's only 2 weeks to go and you want to run a promotion to your email list, then you can do all of that through here. So it's sort of like your email marketing engine as well as your content distribution engine. And the fact that it's really high, it has a lot of features, even on the startup level, the free level, and you can distribute it to, I think it's up to 2,000 people in your contact database for free. There's another big one called Campaign Monitor, but the starting level for Campaign Monitor is you have to pay. Cool. So, you guys have heard of Tumblr? This is quite a good free distribution platform, similar to Lofter, so I won't go into it. Another really good one if you are marketing specifically if you have a content startup or if you're marketing any products into the US, particularly around technology, then Medium is a really good distribution platform. Have you guys used this?
I've not used it, but I've seen it.
So it's really good specifically for the US, younger market, basically people who think they know a lot about technology, or sort of that millennial market. It's good for them. The reason why it's good for any content startup is because you can actually just distribute your content there, and it's actually a writing platform, a blogging. It's more of a writing platform than a blogging platform, so it's not so much about images and all that sort of stuff. And you can just sync, so you can download a WordPress plugin and just distribute your content here automatically. So it's a good way to increase your audience. Pardon me, but only specifically for that audience. And then there's two other innovations that you need to be aware of, that you probably are already aware of. The first one, which is Facebook Instant Articles. You guys know about this, yeah? No? So do you guys use Facebook? Yeah?
We have a call.
Do you use Facebook? Not as much?
No, not really.
So in the newsfeed, you see that little kind of lightning icon. If there's an article in the newsfeed with that lightning icon, it means it's an instant article. Basically, they've released this format of content that means the load times are really fast, or a lot faster. You know, sometimes load time on an article in mobile in the newsfeed was like 10 seconds. So you get halfway and then some people just bounce. Bounce means they view one page and then they leave. So they released instant articles. You click on it and it goes automatically to that page. It's like preloads the page essentially into the news feed. If you're using WordPress, there's a plugin that's free. You can download it and then you can just say this is available as an instant article, and it automatically gets distributed there when you want. You have to manage your instant articles on the actual Facebook platform as well, but it's not particularly hard to do. It's quite good for publishers, and more businesses are using it as a way to distribute content. If you are using Facebook as a distribution platform, then I'd recommend using these as often as possible. You can still distribute your ads into the article in there. They're not necessarily as... they mightn't necessarily be your highest performing ad units, so you mightn't make as much money, but you probably get higher page views. It's also more like if you don't need to make money off the content, sorry, there's lots of insects on there, isn't there? If you don't need to make money from your content via advertising, if you just need to build an audience like content marketing style, then these are a godsend. Another one is what's called Google AMP. And this is Google's equivalent of Facebook articles, Facebook Instant Articles, and it's sort of accelerated mobile pages. Again, you can download WordPress plugins that do this for you, or get you sort of halfway there. But essentially, this is basically saying mobile is the primary way that people consume content these days. We need to make content more accessible on mobile, and this is what Google came up with, Google AMP pages. And it's an approach to HTML and CSS that basically gets you faster performing pages. This isn't as accessible as Facebook Instant Articles because it's actually more about how you kind of code your web pages, but you can kind of get some of the way there. So let's try and find an example. So if I say should be able to see performance on Twitter. It might not be coming up at the moment. Usually you can see a little AMP sign on the side that means that I've coded it as an AMP page. Might actually need to be on mobile to do it. Let's see if I can bring it up. Yeah, there we go. I'll show you guys in a second. See how this is surfacing content from Sydney Morning Herald and it says AMP at the bottom. So when you do a search, says this is an AMP page, and they surface that with a higher page rank or higher ranking. Sorry for the guys in the recording, but just do a search for Rio Olympics on your mobile and you'll see it. They basically gives them a higher ranking in the search results because Google's basically saying if you do this, we will rank your content higher because it's a better experience for the user. So if you want your content to be found, more likely to be found, then you need to go and do something like that, like sort of stay ahead of the search ranking.
So how do you get that onto, like, say, a word? How do you make it an AMP?
There's specific things that need to be done in your HTML, but that you should be able to do most of that through plugins. So before you distribute it or before you publish it. If not, then you'll have to sort of jump in and do a bit of work on that side. But it might be something to consider. Say you start getting a bit of traction. What would typically be the point where you try and do this is you get a bit of traction through social accounts. This is what usually happens with publishers. So, that's one I'm going to have to show you guys. You get a bit of traction through social, and then you say, right, well, we need more traction through organic search. Because organic search, when people are searching for something, means they're more likely to be interested in what you're trying to find. So they probably spend more time on your site than someone who's just in their news feed on Facebook and they click it and they're like, oh, that was cool, and then they go back to Facebook. If you then go down that path, you might say, well, I've got a little bit of money, or I might have a little bit of time available to put into sort of making my content more accessible and more likely to be ranked highly by Google. This would be something that I would do. One of the first things I would do after you go through using that SEO plugin and saying, how can I improve my SEO performance? Cool. How am I going for time? 11. All right. I think I'm sort of halfway. Cool. The next thing I'll go through is advertising. So that's publishing technology. Advertising technology that you need to be aware of. Probably the most used platform for serving ads on an actual website. So an example of a client I've done this for would be countrynews.com.au is DoubleClick for publishers. So basically, as a publisher, you sign up. This is free again. You sign up and then you can create ad units. What ad units are called inventory. It's basically defining a little space on your homepage. If I wait for this to load. Again, this is if you're going down the display advertising route, which, based on what I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, is fraught with danger because of ad blocking, etc. But if you basically say, right, this is my publishing site, I've got my WordPress theme, and now I want to put some ads in there. You use DoubleClick for publishers to create those ad slots. So, for example, that's an ad slot. You might create that in DoubleClick. Say, where's my inventory? You come in here and say, hey, I'm going to create. I think I might be using this. Yeah, Able, Country News, my placements. Finance. I always get that wrong. Able Finance. So I have this half-page ad, which is there's a whole bunch of names for these. They're sort of all ridiculous. Actually, what you need to know is what the size is. So that's 300 pixels wide by 600 pixels high, which is actually, if I scroll down, it is. This ad unit here on this publishing website, and that other one is what's called an MREC, MREC, which is a range of different sizes. It's not technically those sizes. It's actually 300 by 250. And those are basically, I created those and then I got a little bit of code And if you use WordPress, you can simply just drop it into a slot that says manage my ads if you use the right plugin. And then you can use this to sell those ads to advertisers. So this is sort of like, as I said at the start, if it's one of the key activities in your business model canvas is selling advertising, then you need this infrastructure to be able to actually do that for people. If you do put it in place and you get it working, one person could run a standalone sort of hyperblog publishing venture on their own. Like, you wouldn't need an ad manager. There's companies out there where you could say, all right, I've got this audience, and you can say, go and monetize this and sell the ads for me, which might be relevant for you. You could actually find someone like that. In your area, probably not. They're more likely to target sport or finance or, specific areas. So you might have to do something like this on your own. But once you get the hang of it, and there's lots of resources, because this is a Google product, there's lots of resources and training and different things that you can do for free. And then you can see, all right, what's the delivery of all of those ads across my site? And it'll give you a sense of, how many people have looked at all these ads, what's all the impressions that you've made. So 29th, an impression is one page view. So 26,000 impressions on those ads since the start of the year. Those ones that you're seeing with only 41 clicks. And then, so you'll have to, if you're running a publishing venture, you'll have to deploy the ads, say these ads are available for purchasing. When you get an advertiser, basically they'll want to know how their ads performed, and you'll have to send them a report, and you can get the report out of here as well. Cool, so let's double click. I won't go into SSPs because it's too complicated. Now that's, as a publisher, if you're putting advertising on your site, if you actually want to advertise your business, the other side of the equation on the Google product side is actually AdWords. You can use AdWords, Google AdWords. It's basically an ad network. It's I think it is the biggest ad network, and it's search advertising, so SEM. People are searching for stuff, but it's also display advertising. So, display ads on publisher sites or pre-roll ads on YouTube. So it looks like this. Again, it's free to create an account. Once you start advertising, obviously you have to pay for those ads. But then you can set the budget. You can say, I want to spend $100 over a week testing out a couple of different ads with a couple of different ideas against a specific target market and a geography. So for example, this is my business we're advertising at the moment. We're only spending $120 a day. And these are some of the performance metrics that we get. So we've spent $1,000, over $1,000 in total. Average cost per click is about 50 cents. And we then measure, a range of different things that come off the back of this. And these are all the different ads that we have run as tests. So we were testing out all these different ads, and then as the top performing ads start to, rise up, and we say, well, people are clicking on this one more than the others, we turn the other ones off, and then we only spend our money on the ones that are performing well. Sort of that test and learn methodology through digital advertising. Again, because it's a Google product, there's so much you can learn about this platform. All the different sort of ways and areas you can actually advertise, so all the ad groups. I'll show you some of that now. I'll actually have a look at some of the ads. Here we go. So that was a video ad I had out through the same platform. And I was running it through YouTube, so YouTube pre-roll. This is a search ad for my business. So if I go up to, if I just search, because I'm logged in. Just log out. It's weird. Alright, I'm not being served that one at the moment. Usually there's an ad there. Anyway. Hence, because it's been turned off. Probably should have looked at that first. That's the keyword search campaign. And then here's a range of different display ads in those different sizes. So that's a display ad there. I can see the actual full-sized ad. Looks like that I'm advertising for the business. Here's another one. And I just made all of those with Sketch. You could make them all with Canva. It would be free, totally fast, dirty. You don't have to do anything, highfalutin. What you do have to do is test all the messaging and say, try and communicate if you're going to do advertising. The best thing you can do at the start is try and get your value proposition, distill that into an ad, and put it out in front of the people who you think are going to buy what you want to sell them. And actually, that's the most valuable thing you can do with advertising, not try and get lots and lots of people in. It's actually learn, does your value proposition resonate with that customer segment or not? Which is what we're doing at the moment. So these are actually all tests. Well, they've all been paused. There's a whole bunch of, here's the new ones. So we've changed our messaging. Some of those have been paused. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different things in there. It's sort of a slightly confusing description because it's far more than AdWords. It's all of the different ads. Another good advertising network to use is Outbrain. So this is kind of like the solution to ad blocking. So once ad blocking started coming up, these platforms started coming out and saying, hey, if you want to advertise to people, then, and this is relevant for both publishers and advertisers, you can use a thing called like a content distribution platform like Outbrain. Put a piece of content in there, and then we'll put that piece of content on, say, the homepage of the Sydney Morning Herald, or we'll put it on the homepage of The Age, and it will say it's a sponsored post. So if I don't have ad block on, I'll just zoom in. So why it's doing that looks a bit strange. If I go back to 100%, just reload. There we go. Now I'll try and find this unit. It usually sits down here somewhere. Okay, I must have taken it off there. An example one is that they actually run that's their own, is this Brand Discover thing. So it's essentially the same thing. So you can put a piece of content in there and it will distribute that content to a range of different websites to get people to click on it and come back to your site to read that piece of content and then discover what you're on about. It's a bit more expensive, but it is usually has higher conversion rates than just a standard display ad. Usually. There's a range of other ones out there. And then the other two platforms to investigate and learn about are Facebook advertising. Facebook ads, and then also Twitter. So this is an example of Twitter advertising. So Twitter is really good if you're targeting specific influencer groups in Twitter because it's a niche network. But we're running a range of different tests on ads in here. So you can see I'm serving a range of different ads. So many impressions. Total spend is about $1,000 again. I'd recommend checking this out because you can target very specific people. So you could target specific followers of a specific Twitter account who are also interested in certain things and in a specific market. The power of Facebook and Twitter, but primarily Facebook, is that you can get really niche with your advertising in there. So I might have to actually log in to show you. You can actually target really specific groups of people. So you have to log into create a Facebook page, a business page, and then you get this sort of special kind of business sort of management environment. Looks kind of similar to the normal one, and you've got all these different things that you can manage. So you can check out the audience insights. It's only really relevant once you get big. Then you can check out your ads manager. Create ads, again, just using Canva, something simple. And you can chuck ads in the newsfeed. You can capture leads, so you can click on things. People can click on it and just give you their details straight away. There's a range of different sort of useful ad units that are in here. Again, these look pretty similar to what I was doing before on AdWords, but it's only serving into the Facebook kind of advertising ecosystem. And you can set sort of specific budgets on your ads to test different ideas and different messages, and then you can place them in different areas, including Instagram, mobile newsfeed, desktop newsfeed, right column. Never put anything in the right column. No one clicks on that or ever looks at it. I only ever do newsfeed or mobile newsfeed. Cool. So that's very quickly those. Now, subscriptions. If any of you guys are going to run a paywall, or if you're ever thinking about doing a paywall, Piano. The leading kind of platform for building paywalls around news sites is Piano, which is an enterprise level platform, but they have a WordPress plugin that's kind of consumer or blogger level called TinyPass, which I think they've might be renamed into Go. Yeah, here we go. So you can put a paywall around your content, or build a subscription model around premium content using something like this. They take a pretty high percentage on this option, but it's a really easy way to get started with building a paywall. Again, it started actually as a Facebook plugin. That's all it was, and it still is a Facebook plugin. This is probably the leading one out there for subscriptions. So if subscriptions are a part of your business model, then you'll obviously need something like this. I'd recommend using these guys. There are other ones out there. Check them out. This is probably the one that I'm most familiar with. If you run a subscription business around your content, so rather than paywall, so paywall is where you gate some of your content and not all of it. But if you're just running a subscription business where you only get people to subscribe and then you give them access to stuff, so a stuff could be access to a private Facebook group, or a phone call, like a coaching session, or other premium content, then you need to manage your subscriptions with something like Chargify. And that's basically a recurring billing system. You can basically use this as a standalone platform. And there's a bunch of other ones. There's another one called Recurly. There's some other ones out there. You can use this as a recurring kind of revenue platform. So News Corp, for example, use it to run all of the billing for your whole business. You don't have to use any other system. For example, a good example is this site that launched recently by Alan Kohler. He uses Chargify to process all of his subscription payments, and he calls it a membership. But the membership actually gives you access to his overview that he pushes out every Saturday, and then podcasts as well, and then also a Facebook group. So he basically says, well, once you pay your money, you get access to a Facebook group of sort of like-minded people who can give you advice, and he jumps in there every now and then. But to do that, you have to be a member, and if you click subscribe, in the back end, this whole page is run by Chargify. And all of these fields are basically embedded from his Chargify account. And then you can do interesting things like, just in their settings, in the Chargify settings, you can say, all right, for the first month, whenever someone signs up, charge $1. Then after that month, charge them the full amount. And all of that is managed for you. So you don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to do any of that sort of stuff. And then it manages all the payments. And it does all of the security management for all the payments for you as well. So you don't have to worry about all of that sort of stuff, which is essential. There are some other payment gateways I could talk about now. I'm not going to talk about them. You guys can do more research on that on your own. If you have e-commerce as a component of your business, I recommend checking out a platform called Shopify. And then you mentioned Squarespace as well, yeah? Squarespace is good. I reckon it's actually really good for its, pardon me, its online stores. But Shopify is good as well. There's another one called BigCommerce, which is also quite good. They're sort of the biggest ones, BigCommerce and Shopify. It works pretty much exactly like WordPress, except it's only for stores. So if you've got, say, a content idea, which is like a lifestyle content platform built around, say, clothing, and then you want to attach that to an e-commerce store that sells clothes, then you can use Shopify to do that. And it's out of the box. You just press a button and you can get started. Cool. How are you guys going? Sorry if it feels like I'm barreling through this, but there's a fair bit to show you. Now, the next big one on the list is analytics. So are you guys familiar with Google Analytics? Yeah? Yes. Yeah, a little. So, again, because it's a Google product, it's free. Big businesses run on the free version of this. So this is all you really need as a publisher. You don't really need anything else. I'll show you something else which is kind of cool and has bells and whistles, but actually you don't really need it. So this is my site on Google Analytics. You can see sessions, users. If you use WordPress, it's instantly, you can just really easily turn it on, plug it in through a plugin. Pretty much every other platform I've shown you today plugs into Google Analytics. And you can see a range of different stats on your audience, a range of stats on how they got to your site, acquisition, what they do when they're there, so content groups and all of that sort of stuff. And then you can also see conversions and a range of other things, so funnels, build funnels around how people get to different parts of your site. Attribution modeling around if you're doing any ads, you can see, all right, how did this ad work to get people to my site? Then also, did they actually end up buying something or getting in touch with me or doing a range of other things that you want them to do? It's all you're ever going to need, really, in terms of actual digital analytics for a publishing startup or just a normal startup. So these are the stats for my business. So you can create little dashboards, and these are our campaign KPIs. Yeah. Leads and costs by source, all that sort of stuff. Engagement KPIs around users, total users coming on, logins, subscribers to your blog, all that sort of stuff. Facts about our site visitors, where they're coming from, who they are, all of their, the technology they come in on, their screen size, devices, so you can see what share of my traffic is on mobile versus desktop. Different browsers they come from, not as relevant for you guys, but good for developers. Yeah, it's pretty extensive. So that's for a marketing site. I might actually log in and I'll show you that's really annoying. I'll show you a publishing site, a publishing one. There we go. Total website. So this is for the sports site that I was showing you recently. What's going on there? There must be something wrong with the tracking. Anyway, if I go back to last month, so last month you can see total traffic, so total users, all of their page views, number of sessions, and then that's for, then I can see, all right, acquisition, where do they come from? That was primarily almost 90% was from social media. So there's a real focus on social, whereas you can see, all right, what's my direct traffic? So people just typing in the site. Organic search, so searching for the content that I'm producing. If you have specific referral traffic, so people linking to you from other sites saying, hey, go and check out, this site for overseas study tours because it's awesome. That's a referral link. That's another sort of way you can build audience. Your email distribution, and then any other traffic coming to you. So there's a lot you can get into. I'd really recommend checking it out in Google Analytics. There's another one which is specifically for publishers called Chartbeat. These guys have an interesting philosophy around stats for publishers. Let's see the demo site. Yeah, there's a personal one here. So there's a publishing sort of enterprise grade analytics, and then there's this personal kind of web analytics thing that you can see. Where there is a demo on here somewhere. Their whole thing is engaged minutes. So it's the number of minutes people have been on the site actively engaged over a period of time. Real-time dashboard, here we go. But specifically focused on publishers, people who work with content. So they give you sort of measurements around visitor frequency, how loyal your audience are, concurrent users on the site, engaged minutes and engaged time, all your traffic referrals, and then you can filter that by these different things. So you can, again, there's a WordPress plugin for this. You can just load it up and try it out. And that free version, I think, or not free, I think it's very cheap, but it'd be good if you're a hyperblogger or someone who's publishing content a lot. Not as good for if you're just someone who's doing content marketing and publishing, 2 or 3 times a week. But it looks really pretty. I'm going to check out my sections. Yeah, cool. And you can look at it by author. I think the whole idea with these guys is if you're running a newsroom, you can put it up on a display or something like that. I might leave the analytics ones there. I've got a bunch of other ones on my list, but they're not as relevant for you guys. Now, marketing and sales are very important. One platform I'll show you is called Intercom. So because we have a hybrid business, so we have a publishing business and a product business. This essentially does 2 things for me. It gives me an insight as to who's coming onto my application, my site, and what they do. But it also gives me the opportunity to send them messages. So like pop-up messages on the side of a website. This manages those, and also email marketing and a range of other things. So there's a free sort of starting version of this, and then it sort of scales up in cost. As you get more enterprise, you can start paying for it if you want. But I can see, so this is the Riverina Herald editor has been on the site 11 minutes ago. I can see what they did, what they were doing at the time, and I can then filter that list. I can then see, active users versus total users on the platform, and a range of other things. And then people can actually send me messages. So that's the people list. They can send me messages and have conversations with me, and I can distribute those things to different people in my team if I need to. So for example, this morning when I woke up, there was a guy saying, hey, I really want you to delete my account and all my data, please. So I just went in and did that for him, and I sent him a quick message and said, hey, your account and data have been deleted, thanks, with spelling error. and then I get a sort of a view of who he was or who he is, and sort of my business relationship with him over time. I can get an understanding of a bunch of different stuff from him as well. So if he's got a complaint about something on your site, you can see, all right, well, he was on mobile and he was on this operating system, for example, or, he might have been, if it's a reader, for example, and a reader's got a question, you can see, all right, this reader's, been on my site for 5 years, so I should probably answer their question as opposed to someone who's just here. It's also really good for customer feedback and customer support. So if you've got customers coming into your platform, to your site, asking about study tours that are coming up, or if they've got questions about anything, they can do it all through this platform, and then you can manage that customer interaction over time. So it's also sort of a customer support system. So I'd recommend that. There is another one called Zendesk, which you can use. It's very similar. I won't go into it now. Now, for marketing, there are two things I'll show you. Insta page is a really good thing for landing pages. Are you guys familiar with sort of landing page? What a landing page is?
I think so.
It basically looks like that. It's an image with some text and some copy and something to capture someone's details. An email, a name, an address, a mobile phone number, anything like that. So as part of your marketing, this is good. It's more relevant for product businesses than for content businesses, but it's still relevant for content businesses if you're trying to find advertisers, for example. So if you want to find advertisers for your site, or if you want to sell people specific products, or you've got a product line out there and you spin up an ad, the best place to push them to is probably a landing page where there's a bit more information, and then they can give you the details, and then you can say, right, well, I'm going to get in touch with you, or send you more information, or do something else. And so this tool, Instapage, there's lots of different ways to build landing pages. This tool, Instapage, is good because it's cheap, and you can make pretty flexible landing pages. So a good, if you were thinking of launching, say, a product line or launching a whole business, and you're looking for an MVP, an MVP could be a suite of ads targeted at the audience that you're interested in, the customer segments, and a landing page. It explains what your proposition is, and they give you your details. And that could be enough to give you a sense of, does my value proposition resonate with people? And can I communicate it effectively enough so that they give me their details? And can I do that at a pretty decent cost? That's amazingly valuable information. And all you would have had to have done is do a little bit of advertising and get started with this, which I believe is about $5 or $10 per page. Might be less, might be more, but it's pretty reasonable. And they give you a bunch of templates. So it's sort of like a stripped back version of WordPress. All it does is landing pages. Pardon me. Yeah, so I can grab this landing page. Might call this so team campaign. I'm going to do a campaign about the specific. That's annoying. Maybe I've already done a trial on here. Yeah, cool. There you go. It's $39 a month. You could pay it once, do a bunch of campaigns, turn it off. Cool. There are other ways to spin up landing pages. If you use WordPress and you buy a template, it might come with a landing page template. You could just use that instead. Now, this is a big one which I'll show you. So all of the stuff that I've talked about now seems sort of, there's lots of different things that you have to do with each of them. Yeah, you have to have a sign up page for a landing page, and then that gives you email details, and you might need to send people emails on a scheduled basis, and you might be getting followers from your Twitter account. You might get some of those details. Marketing automation is the thing that will enable you to actually run what should be a bigger business with fewer people. So Zapier is a really good platform for that. There's another one called If This Then That. There's a shitload of other ones out there. This one's the best one I've found. And basically what it does is it connects all these different apps in your tech stack. So all of the different apps I've talked about today, the advertising ones, WordPress, MailChimp, all of them have integrations into this platform. And what it actually does is it says, right, if there's a piece of work that you need to do, hopefully my account's still set up. If there's a piece of work you need to do, like when someone signs up to a landing page, take their email address and add it to a specific MailChimp email list. That's a piece of work. And you might have to do that once a day, once a week. Or you could just use this and automate that process and never have to do it ever again. And pretty much everything that you can think of that's administrative and annoying in that marketing, sales, content creation flow can be automated through a platform or a tool like this. It's that thing I was showing you before about Buffer is a version of this. It's just marketing automation. But Zapier takes it to a new level. So for example, there's all of these different apps on here. So say MailChimp, I click on that. What can I do with MailChimp? I might turn off RSS. Some other things. So MailChimp and WordPress. So yeah, here's some examples. So if you're sending an email to someone and you're running a business, you probably want that person to be updated on your weekly newsletter. So this basically goes into your Google Contacts list and automatically adds any new people to a MailChimp email list. HubSpot is a CRM, for example. That's a free CRM you could use. Customer relationship management platform. It automatically will add CRM contacts to a MailChimp list. So that's just MailChimp, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Like, there's some premium ones which you have to pay for, but there's a lot of ones. So you get five automations for free on this platform, so you can try it out. And then if you find you're using it more and more, it's probably worth the investment to put money behind it over time. There's lots and lots of other ones. You can even automate this for, say, if you're trying to keep a track of content coming out from your favorite publishers. You could use that with Feedly. There's loads more. Yeah, there's lots of different stuff in here. But every time you find yourself doing something repetitive, you should try and automate it using a tool like this. Cool. And then the last section I'll go into is admin stuff. So I'll spin through this pretty quickly. We already mentioned Google Docs. I would recommend using Google Drive and the Google suite of content management for everything to do with your business. In addition to that, so that's like Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Sites, etc., a range of other things. There's actually a thing called Google Admin. If I sign in here. That actually manages your emails and people in your organization and all of that sort of stuff as well. Are you guys familiar with that? You are? Or no? Can I log in? Yeah, cool. It's actually up here in admin. And what it is when you buy a domain for your business, you can use this and sync it so that you can spin up employee admins. You can manage all of the data that they have. When someone leaves your company profile, when when someone leaves, say you employ a content assistant or someone for a while, you can give them an email address in here. And when they leave, what do you do with all of their data, for example? And in here, you transfer all of that data to, say, you or someone else. So here are all of my users. I'm running 2 businesses. So Cognitives is one business. These are all of my employees, or people who work there. And this is Fans Unite, the publishing venture. There's only 1 employee there. There's a bunch of other guys, but they don't have emails. And then the top level ones, I've got other people who are sort of at the top level. So you can manage your users. You can also set up, there's a range of different things. You manage all your domains, add or remove domain aliases. There's a whole bunch of different stuff. And then you manage it and it costs you, $5 per user, which is pretty convenient. The convenience factor is what gets me for this. Once you get serious, you need to think about accounting. This is the platform you should use for that. It's called Xero. There's another one called MYOB. You can check that out as well. I don't like it as much as this. It's super simple to use, and most accountants, once you get to that point, if you need an accountant, they'll use this and they'll be able to use it for you. So I won't spend too much time on that because I can see your eyes glazing over it already. If you're managing lots of people and you need to manage projects, then I would recommend using, there's a whole bunch of these out there, but this is the one that I recommend. It's called Asana. I need to use my Google account. Okay, it's waiting for a while. Actually, I won't show you that. You can check it out. You can do a trial if you want. Probably only relevant for those of you who are trying to organize lots of people, so it'll be relevant for you. With your, groups of people all over the world, this is really good for managing lots of people if they're all over the place. And then, what else? That's one thing I did actually forget to show you guys, which is very good. I showed you this earlier, or I used it earlier as an example, but this is a good way of getting sort of top level knowledge about competitor websites and other things. So I won't use that. What's one of your favorite news websites? Anybody? Preferably Western English.
Normally I just use the ABC.
ABC or
The Age.
The Age? So this data isn't totally 100% accurate, but it's competitive data, so you can see it's competitive, and it's also you can look at the performance of one site relative to another one to get a sense of total traffic, engagement time, engagement time, and also how it compares and how they build an audience relative to other sites. So it gives you a sense of how they're building an audience or how they're actually driving traffic to their site. I think it must, maybe the Monash Wi-Fi network basically says, all right, you can't access stuff very fast after a certain amount of time. That's super annoying. I find this really useful for comparing content strategy. So you can look at the way different publishers distribute their content, where their traffic comes from, to get a sense of where they're spending their time on building and distributing content to different audiences. So you can really see, one publisher might have a really high level of referral traffic, and so they work really hard on link building. Whereas another publisher might have a different content strategy that results in a very large percentage of the traffic coming from social media. Come on, what's going on here? Cool. So while that's loading, did I not cover any areas that you guys have questions on for your ideas, your business ideas? Maybe, maybe not. As I mentioned, so it might actually be a good way to think about all the stuff that I went through. If there are specific things that you then think you might need to do as part of your business model canvas and you don't know how to do them, then that's a time when you get in touch with me and say, hey, I need to do X, Y, Z. What are some platforms or some key technologies that are going to enable me to do that? Might be distribution in the channel side, or it might actually be key partners you need to have on board to make your business model work. Some of them could be platform providers and technology. Some of them might just be normal business relationships. Most of them, I'm assuming, are going to be in that key activities area, and the key activities for a typical content startup are the top 4.
What was that site to buy a domain name through
Namecheap
that you had Yeah.
is the one I use because it does what it says on the packet.
And you can attach a WordPress into the domain through that, or
Yeah, you have to buy a domain,
yeah.
and then you have to buy hosting with it. You can buy this one, shared hosting.
Yeah.
I'll show you mine actually. Alright, so it doesn't look like SimilarWeb's going to work. You can go and check that out at home. So these are all the domains that I have bought through here. Usually if I've got a business idea or something like that, I'll go and buy a domain, spin up something on it, maybe a landing page, just put some ads out, test it, get an idea about it. So here's one, that idea that I was talking about at the start of the semester, the stupid one I had for the uniform. There's a domain, get uniform. And then I can say, there's no hosting on that. I need to contact them and manage this, and then you can add hosting. You go up here to products. Okay,
So
that's not
buying
working.
the domain, is that like a once-off thing and then you own that?
It's a subscription, so you own it for a set period of time,
Okay.
and you renew them.
And then there's a separate hosting.
There's a separate hosting subscription, yeah. Where is it? So people do that. That's like a business for some people. I think it's the most boring business on earth, but they buy domains and then try and buy valuable domains and sell them to people. WizGuard, oh yeah, cool. That's actually good if you want. That's one thing that's quite useful is I think called the WhoIsGuard. So I'm not sure if you guys, have you done investigative journalism yet? Yeah, in one of those things they say, use reverse DNS lookup to figure out who's behind a website. Well, you just purchase that and it removes that, and it costs about $2. And it's good because particularly if it's a news site and you don't want people kind of hunting around and getting in touch, because you have to list your contact details on a domain provider. It's like a legal requirement. So if you don't want those available to the public and you want to push it through, say, Get in Touch or Editor or Generic, then that's the way that you need to do that. Otherwise you'll get people contacting you all the time, or they scrub it and they try and sell you stuff, and it just gets kind of annoying. So if you purchase, say, this value one, and then you can add it to a domain, use a domain owner on Namecheap, and then once you're in there, there's like a hosting area like an area, and you can say, all right, I want to upload WordPress, and you can click that button, and then it'll take you through that process. And then once you're in there, you then get your theme and upload it. If you are having a crack at it and you need some help, just hit me up on Slack, and I can do a screen share. If it's like in the evenings, I can do a screen share with you and do it with you. But to an extent. All right. Did you guys have any questions or on your business idea, like stuff that you might want to use? I realize I went through a lot. Not all of it will be relevant to your ideas.
Yeah. Is it helpful for us to learn some coding?
Only if you're interested. Actually, well, so in a startup mode, like if you're trying to build a startup and you don't know how to code, that's not the most effective thing you could be doing with your time. The most effective thing you should be doing is to validate the assumptions in your business model. Whereas if you're a tech startup, or if you want to run a tech startup and you need to have those skills, then you need to learn to do that before you start a startup, not while you're doing a startup. I reckon they're really good skills to have if your business is digital, whether you're a journalist producing content online or whether you're someone who's trying to sell stuff or build a business online, because it's just like, if you were trying to use a computer, you would need to know how to use a word processor. But if you spend all of your time online, the language of digital is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc. So it's beneficial to know all of that stuff, even if it means that when you're trying to, say if you start a business, you know a bit about it when you start a business and you're trying to negotiate with a web developer to build a website for you, then you can basically know when they're bullshitting you or not, and you can negotiate more effectively because you've got more power. Then, if you don't have those skills and you're in that space, you have to just accept sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I think it's really fun. Like, I really actually do think coding is fun. There's a lot of problem solving. It's interesting.